So, Alex, I'm going to tell you the plan for this week's podcast.
All right, yep, go on.
We're going to discuss the storylines.
Yep.
And then you'll probably slug off the character of Liam for a few minutes.
Yep.
And then I'll go off on some long monologue where I praise the show and its fantastic actors.
Standard, yep.
Yes. And then you will make a random promise for us to get more subscribers that you have to keep to.
Not sure about that.
Tough.
Yeah.
Got it?
Got it. I'm Alex.
I'm Rob.
And this is the Walford Weekly Podcast. And welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 6th to Friday the 10th of December. And the show wouldn't be anything without him. We are yet again joined by the tip-top man of the moment. It's Rob. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Top of the morning to you, Alexander. Hello, everybody. How are we all this week? How are you, Alex? Are you well?
Yes, I'm very good. I'm very good indeed. Had a lovely week. We've been wishing lots of people Merry Christmas and happy 500th episodes as well. Just want to do another shout out to Conversation Street. Congratulations on your 500 episodes. I still can't fathom 500, 9.5 years, Rob.
We haven't even hit 200 yet on ours, and it seems like we've been going for years and years and years. Like how?
It does feel like
how long? How long?
I've aged.
I know. How long is it until we? I mean, what are we on? What's this one? What episode are we on?
This is 186. So after this week, we got 14 more weeks. But we have technically done over 200. We've done 220 episodes, actually, because we've done the extras and we've done the tributes to Barbara Windsor and the executive producers when we talked about the new swapovers. So we have done over 200 episodes. But for the official Walford Weekly, we're on 186. This is episode 186 you're watching or listening to right now on YouTube or your favourite podcast app.
Well, I look forward to episode 500 when we're both holograms or heads floating in formaldehyde. That's going to be good.
I'd love that. Well, like in Futurama with all the jars of heads.
Yeah, that'd be quite cool.
Wow. Would you want that to happen to you? Would you want to live like Walt Disney, have your body like frozen to be brought back to life in 100 years' time so you can see what the world of the future looks like? I'd hate that. I mean, absolutely despise it.
I know, it's a bit Black Mirror, isn't it? Once upon a time I would have done, because when I was a kid, I would have looked forward to like living in a time when Thunderbirds existed. And, you know, that I could just get on a bus to Mars or something. And floating cars. And all that sort of thing. So, no. But the future, however, is that this week we're going to be talking about EastEnders, and we'll talk about looking forward to the future when we get onto one of the storylines. But first, Alex, who is on the rota for stories?
Well, we're going to start off then with the title sake, which is the Kim story this week, where she's finally confronted and had it out with Phil Mitchell, and Phil openly admitted his sorrow, pain, his regret. He even said he regretted putting out the job for Vincent, and the fallout really afterwards. I mean, Phil still wants to cover up this story from the whole of Walford. Kim's adamant that everyone needs to know what kind of man Phil is and the Mitchell family are. But Denise has obviously got the threat now that she's going to lose her salon, and it's really put a rift between Denise and Kim, which I found really interesting this week, where Kim seemed to forgive Denise, but then at the hen party kind of retracted that forgiveness.
Yes, because she overheard Kat and Denise talking about it, and kind of got it into her head that basically everyone was laughing at her, and that everybody knew about the plan, and that everybody knew what had happened to Vincent, all except her. So now she's she's just kicking off, really, isn't she? And she's made it quite clear that she has no intentions of going to Denise and Jack's wedding, because it was the hen night this week. Denise didn't want a stripper, and everybody in the whole pub was saying that they wanted a stripper. Is it that much of a tradition to have a stripper at a hen do? Does it have to happen, otherwise it's hen do or no? It's stripper or no hen do, essentially. Like, would you? I
feel
don't know.
It's something that Kim should have done. It's something that Kim would, if in any normal circumstance, Kim would have been up there adamant that a stripper would have been booked for that evening, and it was almost showing how Kim has grown up or moved on from her sibling relationship with Denise. I've attracted to grown up, but she didn't order that stripper, and so everyone was quite surprised. I mean, it's nice to have a stripper, isn't it? It's nice to look at a man one last time. But then Denise does have Jack Branning, who is quite the Adonis himself.
He is.
So I think if you're going to have anyone come in the strip, I think Jack would be absolutely fine anyway in Denise's.
That's true. Just walking in his policeman's outfit. Mind you, he's not in uniform, isn't he? Which just takes the point. Of a police stripper out of it altogether, doesn't it? If you're going to strip, if you're a policeman, do not though I don't want any form of CID officer coming towards me and taking his clothes off. Boring. Not interested. I want a
Not
constable.
even Detective Gaffney? Not Detective Gaffney kind of walking into the room?
No, he was playing clothes as well.
Afterlife. He was.
As well.
So you wouldn't want a Gaffney either. Wow.
No,
so Callum then, essentially.
I suppose Highway, PC Highway. Yeah, I suppose that would be my only
PC Highway. I haven't seen him in his uniform in ages, though. He has not been around policing for a long, long time. After
he wasn't around,
crash course
around that much.
Being one.
No, he wasn't around that much during it anyway, was he? Anyway, so, I mean, how long is it now, do you think, that Kim is just gonna... Where is this going? I'm a bit, because now everybody knows. The whole secret's out. There's Kim knows everything now. And now her only thing is to kind of try and get revenge on Phil. Now, you say that she wants to make the whole square aware of what sort of man Phil is and what sort of family the Mitchells are, as though there is a single person on that square who doesn't know what sort of person Phil is and doesn't know what type of family the Mitchells are, apart from just depleted from their original power. So, I mean, what is she planning on getting? Because the thing is, even Jack, who I think she kind of thought that she could rely on, especially if you've seen as though he has had quite the rivalry with Phil over the years. I think she kind of thought that he would be quite up for the idea of getting Phil arrested, but even he's like, no, I wouldn't bother, love. No, he's got no evidence. It's fine. It's
funny how Jack has kind of stepped back from all of this, because when there was that scene this week where Phil came barging in and was like, "Oh, you need to sort out your sister if she starts leaking all this information," and it took Patrick to kind of step up and defend Denise, while Jack just kind of stood there like a quivering wreck behind the door, going, "Well, you should listen to Jack." Yeah, like the woman he's about to marry, and he's like not defending her whatsoever. It took Patrick to defend his own daughter. Yeah. Good old Patrick. I love Patrick. Hasn't Patrick really grown? Haven't the Foxes grown this year? It's been great seeing the Foxes this year on the show. I've so enjoyed seeing them being front row centre. And yes, it's had to involve the Mitchells, but still, seeing that whole family and the stories kind of go into the fabric of the show this year has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed seeing the Foxes kind of grow this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're a good family, and it's nice to sort of have Patrick at the head of it. I like it when Patrick goes all godfatherish and takes on anybody, because really Patrick's not scared of Phil. He never has been. But Phil and Patrick have kind of come to a head now and again over the years. Nothing major, but they have had their scenes together, and I don't think he's particularly afraid of Phil. So I think it might be quite interesting to see what Patrick's role is in this story going forward. Whether he will try and be a peacemaker, whether he will, because I don't think Patrick really knew about what had been going on. So it might be interesting to see if Patrick is on Kim's side with everything and decides to kind of go with Kim on the take down Phil bus, or whether he sides with Denise to try and keep the peace. Who knows? It might be interesting to see.
Do you think Vincent is set to return? Because a lot of people are saying online that you've not seen the video. Denise turned her head before the actual shot was taken. And obviously we had the Keanu story a couple of years ago when they faked the death on the mobile phone to show... Ben on Dark Martin. Do you think this is potentially, you say you don't know where this story is heading? Do you think that's where it's heading? We're going to see Vincent back on the square. Richard Blackwood, or maybe another actor, is going to...
just recast him. Just recast that anyone could walk on screen and Denise would just go, Vincent! Yeah. No, I don't.
We're all meant to be going, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, him. No, I don't think that Vincent's coming back. I do believe that Vincent is properly dead, because I thought Denise's reaction to when she saw the video was quite realistic. Like, she screeched and looked absolutely horrified, which would imply that she had just seen brains coming out of the back of his head. So
we'd hope.
You know, if that gunman was any sort of worth his salt, we would see brains on that video. So yes. I don't think that he is coming back. I think he is properly dead. He's not Tina, Alex. Tina, I've still got hopes of walking through the door of the vehicle on Christmas Day, but no.
Do you know? I was doing some research for a video that will be coming out at the end of this month, and it sounds like your dog's having a nice little scratch as well. He's really excited about Vincent returning too.
Trying to record here, you chipping in.
It's been a year since the Tina rapping and
Mad, isn't
carried away. It's a year,
Subway
and we're still
Tina.
holding out hope that she's going to return at some point.
It's looking
Going,
progressively
come on,
unlikely
Tina.
As the weeks go by, it's looking more and more unlikely. But, we're nothing but hopeless optimists, are we really, Alex? There you go.
We're hopeless fools. So another story this week is Keegan returned from hospital after last week when he got attacked under Aaron's orders. And Issac is immediately suspicious of Aaron straight away. He's kind of confronted him in the Vic, but this was done in front of Lola, which really upset, Lexi, which really upset her, seeing something we've not seen of Issac for a little while, and that's perhaps his illness
Volatile.
kind of coming back into the front of everyone's minds again. And I thought that was a really interesting scene, actually, seeing Issac kind of getting involved with Keegan after he visited him in the hospital, and Keegan clearly looked deflated, looked like tired. He'd given up. He said, like, why do I bother trying to succeed in life when every time I get knocked down? But Aaron was very arrogant, wasn't he? And Tiff didn't seem to see any of that.
Yes. Aaron is I don't think Aaron believes himself to be in any trouble whatsoever. And the thing about Aaron this week is that I'm kind of getting into the thing that he doesn't believe he's doing anything wrong, which is always great for a villain. He's not just some sort of moustache twiddling, I'm a I know I am. A bit like Janine, for example. He doesn't fall into that category. He genuinely believes that what he thinks and his motives are completely reasonable, and that all Muslims are just the spawn of the earth. The whole thing with Isaac was quite interesting. I did enjoy Keegan coming out of hospital because you remember, we discovered that Keegan last week had a collapsed lung, which is a fairly serious thing to happen to anybody. And he was all right.
Are we going to go into aftermath here?
Well, no, what I was going to really say is that I quite like the fact that he came out of hospital straight back into storylines, but we knew that he had a collapsed lung because he was walking around with his hand on his chest for the entire week.
And hobbling as well. He
hobbling
kept
around
like this,
bit.
didn't he?
Just walking with his hand under his shirt, holding his lung in place or something. I don't know. But
maybe.
If that's a medical thing, I don't know. But basically, Keegan is out of hospital. Hurrah. Keegan's thing this week is not really anything to do with the... It's to do with the Aaron storyline. Keegan's involvement in this is more to do with him witnessing Liam taking the cars from Tiffany's little do at the thing. Now, I think that's about all we could really say about the Isaac storyline, isn't it? It happened. Isaac thinks that Aaron's got something to do with it, and blah blah blah.
Yes.
But yes, the Keegan going into the Liam and the Janine heist storyline, which I believe is next. Where do we begin? In this little plan? We'll start at the start of the week, I suppose, where we think that, Jay it turns out that Jay and Honey have this enormous phone bill to pay, presumably because Janet was making phone calls from Miami, and as a result of that, they have a massive, massive phone bill. Now, I would like to point out here and now that Jay is a used car salesman. Selling maybe one car or two cars would probably pay off a phone bill. Like, where was Janet making these calls to? Jupiter? The phone bill wouldn't be that high that selling one car is going to put Honey and Jay into dire straits with their money, I thought. But Jay's response to that is, because he has a customer come in, doesn't he, who he sold a car to, who is saying, your car, you've sold me a stolen car. This car that you sold me is stolen property, and I want my money back immediately. Now, the question I did have a bit at the start of, how did this guy know that this was a stolen vehicle? B, why didn't Jay ask for any proof of the fact that this guy had been accusing him of selling him a stolen vehicle? None of that happened, or maybe if it did, it happened off camera. But as a result...
No, I think the guy did bring it up to him, to be fair. He said that he can see faked paperwork from a mile off. And so I think... But the fact that it took so long for him to kind of like sit down and settle it in and kind of say, oh, this must be fake. I'm going to go and tell him that. I want my money back. Yeah, yes. that was a bit... It seemed a bit stretched a little bit. So you had to kind of like just jump onto that bandwagon and just kind of like... see what the ride would take you.
And then Jay storms around to the Vic to basically tell Janine, right, I know what you've been doing. What are you going to do about it? I want my money back. And I'm going to report you to the police. And Janine's like, well, good luck with that, because I've basically made it so that you are solely responsible for everything that's gone on. To which Jay kind of goes back, has to think about it, realises that he's got this, I assume, £1 million worth of phone bill to pay, and decides, well, do you know what? Fine. If that's the way you're making money, I want in. So that night, Tiff has a little do happening, because this whole thing is still going on, with Tiff being some sort of wedding plan organiser and organising hen do's only at Ruby's. So that's happening. And once again, she seems to have found herself in the position where she is trying to deal with the worst hens that I don't know what happens in London with people that go on hen nights.
She's never been lucky with any of the hens, has she?
They're all so
Every
unreasonable.
single one of them she's ever organised has some kind of ridiculous accessory or something that they need. Yeah. So every single one has been a bridezilla, and even Tiff was a bit like, I don't know why I'm bothering anymore. This is too tiring. I can't be bothered. But I guess we got the naked butler again from Liam, which was just frightening to see once more.
Frightening? Don't be mean. He's not a bad Don't be horrible.
He's a lovely guy. No. He's a good-looking guy, and he looked much better than I would in an apron and a pair of black tight pants.
Well, there's only one way to find that out.
It's not something I need to see while I'm eating. No, we're not going to find that out at any point. It's not something I need to see while I'm having my plate of spaghetti oops.
Anyway, so yes. So the plan is basically to steal all these girls' cars, because they've all turned up apparently in these really, really kind of upmarket Rolls Royces, BMWs, Mercedes, any posh car basically. But we could name off the top of our head. Apparently, this group of hens turned up at Ruby's Inn. So we find out the plan from Janine. We find out what the plan to take the cars is, and how do we find out that plan, Alex?
Well, it's just a montage, isn't it? In the style of Ocean's 11. And what made it even more terrifying was that, well, this is the thing. It had been a while, and I remember I thought to myself, it's been so nice up until this point where it's felt like the last 2 or 3 weeks where it's just felt like it's kind of getting on its feet, and it's nice to watch EastEnders, and there's been some nice stories, there's been some nice filming, it's been nice writing, acting, everything's been really nice. And then we had the Ocean's 11 montage. And what is ridiculous is the fact that they were so proud of it too. I don't know whether do you think it was meant to be a joke? It was meant to be a laugh? It was meant to be something, a comedy bit by the production team? Because if it was, I don't think it hit, actually, to be perfectly honest with you.
It didn't hit you. It didn't tickle your pickle. To be honest with you, I think what it was meant to do... to be honest, I think what it was meant to do was sort of just progress the plot quicker, because they had a 20-minute episode. So I think their idea was basically like, we'll explain the plan and get the plan done all within one scene. I'm sure it was literally just as boring as that. That's the reason why it happened. But yeah, what we did have was Janine narrating over a sort of clips of this plan taking place, with Liam taking cars,
it carried out,
and it being carried out basically, so that it could all take place within one scene. Now, I would understand that if the episode had really required a huge amount more of plot in that time. As if something massive was going to happen after this had happened, which they wanted to get to, I would have sort of understood it a little more. But the only thing that really happened as a result of this thing was the girls going, my car's been nicked because the keys are missing out of my bag, and then Keegan seeing Liam driving off in one of the cars. So yeah, I don't know. But as a
wow, brilliant!
It just did. It just happened. I mean, almost. There was almost a sort of like, oh, there they are. There's the effects and editing tricks. I'd almost missed them. It had been that long. I thought somebody had been
almost,
fired,
but not quite.
And just almost. Anyway, so yeah, the next day, Keegan, armed with this information, goes across to the Archers, where Liam is busy fixing a car with the cleanest, shiniest spanner I'd ever seen in my life. Did you notice how shiny and new and completely untouched that spanner looked? It was black. It was shiny.
I didn't notice that, but I did notice how they've literally given Liam a character transplant, and it didn't show so much than it did on that episode at that moment when he threatened Keegan. And I thought, for God's sake, why have you done that to Liam? It ruined for me. It ruined everything for me. Not that I enjoyed it to begin with. But Liam's never been a threatening kind of guy. Yeah, since he's been back, but up until But up until that point, he's not been that offensive because he's not really done very much, other than every now and then kind of look like he's swallowed a bumblebee because his mouth keeps going all the time, or every time like a car in any way is mentioned, he reacts to it, like anything like that. And there was that washing up scene, which was also irritating. But apart from that, like nothing kind of showed his character worse than. Can you tell that I'm not that a big fan of the Return of Liam?
I think you've got something about this, Alex. I think this is something that you actually rant about off camera. Just to yourself, just walk around your room, chuntering and bringing Liam around.
Shouting at myself in the mirror.
Naked butler.
Why have they done that to Liam?
Yeah. So, but essentially, though, he kind of scares Keegan off. Understandably, though, because Keegan has just come out of hospital with a collapsed lung because he's holding his chest.
Holding his lung, yeah.
Holding his lung into place, yes. And kind of runs away and tries to tell Tiff, and Tiff once again goes, well, why should I believe anything you say? I did trust you at one point, but then you slept with Dottie and ruined our marriage. By the way, our divorce papers have now been signed, so me and you effectively are no more. And I'm going to carry on dating Aaron. And so Keegan really has got nothing left, really, has he? In the words of Ian Beale, I've got nothing left. So it's... What's the future for Keegan now?
It feels like... Well, this is it. It feels like Keegan is the one leaving the show and not Tiff. Doesn't it? It feels like it's a natural exit. I mean, there's not been any word that he's leaving, but supposedly there must be something happening between him and Tiff before her final storyline. Because I don't think she's on for much longer, is she? She
can't be.
A couple more. I don't think she stays. I don't think she stays for the new year. I think she's gone before then.
Yeah,
and Tiff is making some real bad judgments, isn't she? Because she's kind of I know, but it's really bad now. Like, she won't believe anything Keegan's... Like, loads of people around her are telling her, like, everything she's doing is wrong. And she's not... Seems to be knocking into her brain very well. Like, Keegan's saying, like, your brother is a completely different character from when he left, and now he's come back and he's stealing cars. And, Aaron is... Aaron's not a great guy either, and she's been told that by a few people too. And so it just... It frightens me that, like, Tiff is almost going to leave under a grey cloud, Do you also feel like the actress doesn't seem to be giving the same kind of portrayal of Tiff the way she used to? She feels like she's a bit tired and a bit like she's not.
It.
No, I feel like she just doesn't. I just feel like she's not like she's always been kind of very confident and very bubbly. As and when she played it with like a lot of enthusiasm. It just feels like she's kind of. It's like when you finish a job, like when you're leaving a job to move to a new job, like you don't really give it your whole 100% commitment at the job you're leaving quite so much.
You just turn up to work hungover. You turn up to work hungover / still drunk. Don't even turn up in your uniform. You're wearing white trainers. I think. You're just honestly, this anger that you have towards Liam does not get to transcribe into the rest of the Butcher family, Alex. Honestly, like, leave them alone.
No, of course not. But we should talk about then Tiff's relationship with Aaron and the Monroe family, because we learned a little bit more about the Monroe family this week, especially that Dana is considering converting to Muslim to be closer to Bobby, because she thinks that there's always going to be that kind of rift between them if she maybe doesn't. And Aaron, she told Aaron, almost as a threat to Aaron, really, to say kind of like, leave Bobby alone. If you're going to keep going on and battering on at him, I'm thinking of converting him. So then you're not only hurting Bobby, you're converting me as well. And Aaron straight away told his dad, Harvey, and Harvey's like, leave it with me. I'll sort this all out. But obviously this isn't something that someone who we think is part of some kind of right-wing extremist group wants to hear, that a member of his own family wants to convert to Muslim. No,
I did kind of get the impression that Dana, when she was talking to Iqra about the possibility of her converting, it was almost like she was having the same conversation. Do you think I should dye my hair blonde? I think Bobby would quite like that. If I went blonde, what do you think? I mean, it might not suit me, in which case I'll go back. I don't think she's really kind of taken the idea of what she's actually proposing to do here on board. And even Iqra was kind of like, it's great sometimes it's, are you sure about that, Dana? So I don't know whether she actually will. Because this is the thing, I don't think Dana was any particular sort of religion either way before this, was she? So it's not like she's going from Christianity to Muslim or anything like that. She's for all the sex purposes, she could have been going from atheist to Muslim. So I wonder if she really kind of, I don't know if changing a religion to suit your partner necessarily works.
Yeah.
You know, because it requires, if you are in a religion, it requires you to, you know, believe in gods or, you know, the rules of whatever religion that goes by. So I don't know if this is going to be something that will go particularly well for Dana, or it might, you know, it might be the fact that Bobby and Dana get a lot closer. Who knows? I still don't believe that Dana is going to survive past the end of this plot. I'm telling you now, she reminds me far too much of Danielle. You know, this kind of sweet, sort of lovely girl that would be lovely to have in anybody's life. That Bobby's an extremely lucky guy to have this really sort of sweet, kind, you know, fun girl. And Walford has no time for people like that. People like that tend to die in horrible, horrible ways. And if that involves Dana getting blown up to smithereens into a million pieces, then so be it. You know, I think this is the thing, isn't it? What this is building up to is Bobby becoming more and more in love and these two becoming more and more sort of suited together and being this absolutely perfect couple before Aaron inadvertently rips them apart and it all goes from there.
Yes.
Because I think that's the best, that's the biggest story that you can get out of this plot, isn't it?
Yeah. And then this also then leads to Aaron maybe blaming Bobby for his actions. And then making this story stretch further down the line, because, like I said before, I worry that this is being done in a very contained, short amount of time, where there's so many more avenues they could take this, and so interesting and so relevant right now with the way social media and there seems to be a slight rise in kind of like right wing views, I think it's something they should definitely an avenue they should take down. I mean, a little bit later in the next story we'll talk about, I'll give you my views of who I think might end up getting the chop during the bomb as well. But I think you're right. It would be interesting with Dana.
Well, I think it's quite interesting that if the way I see it is that some sort of big explosion bomb type thing is going to go off at the mosque, and Dana is going to, as a result of Aaron's actions, and Dana is going to be killed. She might not be alone in the deaths, but I think Dana is the main victim is going to be the main victim of the storyline. And what that will leave us with is two men who are complete opposites, who both have the one thing in common, that they've accidentally murdered their sister. And I think that would actually be a really interesting parallel to sort of have between the two. Now, I don't know how much of a shelf life Aaron has got as a character. Presumably not that long. I don't suspect we'll still be talking about Aaron a year from now, for example. But it's, I think that parallel might be quite interesting. But it's all, I mean, this thing, any story has got to always be, what is the best story? What is the biggest story? And in some ways, what is the longest story that we can tell with this? I think, Dana is top of my list, I'm afraid. I like her. This is the thing. I like her and I like the actress.
Top of your list.
But top of my list, so she is. So I don't think Dana's long for this world, unfortunately. I've been saying for a few months, and nothing has happened since to make me change my mind. However, you have a different view on, as we go into the next story, you have a different view on who is going to die in the apparent mosque explosion.
I certainly do. Just one last thing, though, I just want to bring up on something you said, and that is about Harvey and learning more about her mum. Do you think we're going to learn any more about that?
Oh, I hope so. I hope so, because there's a big old mystery
because
about
there
the
must
mum,
be
isn't
something there that we need to learn.
Yeah.
Exactly. That mystery is still there, and we keep giving crumbs, and we don't seem to get the full cake.
As to why Aaron is the way he is. As well, you know, I liked your theory that you gave a few months ago of maybe the mum leaving because of something that had happened in some sort of extremist attack, or some sort of something to do with why he feels the way he feels the way he does now as a result of what had happened to his mum. But at the same time, whenever we've spoken about the mum, it's always saying things like, your mum left. It never used to be like this before your mum left. So presumably she's still alive somewhere. We just don't know anything about her. Presumably as well, Aaron is a key component as to why mum has run away somewhere, which might be quite interesting to kind of see, and to see exactly what Aaron is capable of and what exactly he has done in the past. Because as we know from a couple of weeks back, this ain't Aaron's first rodeo. He's been here before.
No.
Harvey is fully aware of his son's
done this a few
behaviour.
times.
So I'm very interested in finding out the history of the Monroes and seeing where this mum slots into things.
Yeah, I'd like them to delve into the Monroes a little bit more. But as you quite rightly said, there's another story kind of attached to this, and that's Mila and Iqra and Kioni. And they there's a couple of stories there, but the one then which kind of links to what we were just talking about, maybe Dana dying during the storyline of the explosion. I don't know, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we had a little tidbit right at the beginning of the week where Iqra looked up and said, "Hi, Bobs." By the way, I love Bobs. Bobs. From now on, we're not calling Bobby. It's Bobs. Hi, Bobs. I've got myself a new job. It's working in a hotel, doing the restaurant and looking after the services.
Yes.
It's much better than Walford East because I'm not under the dark cloud of Peterbilt.
Yes.
And I'm probably getting paid a little bit more. So I will be leaving at around about the New Year's kind of time. Perhaps maybe when it's anniversary week. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's fine, says Bobs. But then in my head, I thought to myself, oh, that's not fine because does that mean we've got a disposable character here, one that could potentially die as well as or die instead of Dana for this extremist story.
Unfortunately, arguably, the word disposable could be applicable to Iqra ever since she arrived, unfortunately, because of the way that
it's such a shame, though.
The Massoud sisters were written, and it is so frustrating.
Such a wasted opportunity with those sisters.
I know, and as we spoke and ranted about,
I blame Jags.
Yeah, I blame Jags as well. You've got a lot to answer.
I blame Jags entirely. It's all his fault.
All his fault.
He's got too much
Everything that's going on with EastEnders at the minute is all Jags' fault.
Jags' fault.
I wouldn't be surprised if John Sen is a pseudonym for Jags. In all honesty, I think he could be blamed for everything. Anyway, I think you've got a perfectly good point. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm honest, because obviously she is involved in the storyline. Mila as well. How are we still going to be talking about Mila in a year's time? I mean, yeah, she's got Kioni there, which is something, I suppose. But I don't know. But is Mila maybe going to die, and Iqra and Kioni are going to be left together? That's a possibility as well. I think. Oh, goodness. I think
that would be having adoption of some.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if we might end up with 2 deaths out of this story. To be honest. To be fair, nothing has been... what I will say straight off the bat is nothing has been confirmed by the show whatsoever. We are merely going by paper reports.
Speculation.
And the people that work on the show might be listening to this podcast and going, what the hell are they talking about? Nothing like that is happening whatsoever. What are you on about?
Or they're taking notes.
Hope
you're listening, BBC.
That's a great idea. Let's blow up the mosque.
Why didn't we think of it before?
Why don't we think of that? Honestly, Walford Weekly, they give us so many ideas for storylines. This is the greatest thing ever. Right, so, I think you're perfectly right. I think Iqra is in danger. Because basically, the way Iqra eventually appeared this week was that Kioni is sort of... Because since the mum has been sent to prison, Kioni is now worried about what life is like in prison for her mum. And it's kind of she overhears Eve and Stacey in the cafe talking about prison and sort of asks Eve, well, what's prison like then? Yeah, but it can't be that bad, can it? It can't be that bad. And Eve and Stacey believe that they effectively have a young Slater type girl on their hands who wants to just rebel against the world and who isn't afraid of causing trouble and tells her it's awful. You cry yourself to sleep every night. People get murdered. It's awful. Don't drop soap in the shower. Any of it. So Kioni leaves absolutely traumatised because of what had happened to her mum. Resulting in, and then apparently Eve and Stacey stay in the cafe for about 3 hours while Kioni goes and talks to They don't move. Breakfast, lunch,
they don't move.
And dinner.
And they're on separate tables the whole time as well. They're just shouting across the cafe like they own the joint. It's like, oi, Eve,
honestly.
get us a coffee.
Another cake.
So cake. So inconsiderate.
So rude.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Make it lemon drizzle this time. Lemon drizzle.
Honestly. So the... Mila comes in and goes, what the hell is wrong with you? Why have you been filling Kioni's head with all of this? And then sort of understands what's been going on. And Eve suggests to her that it might be an idea for Kioni to be taken to the prison to see her mum so that she can sort of see the environment that her mum's now in. Now, after our rant last week, which I stick by, in fairness, about how much of a wasted opportunity the storyline has been, Are we possibly about to see the mum again? Are we going to, or is all of this about to happen off screen? Are we literally just being given bullet points of what's going on in Mila and Kiona's life? We're never going to see, but we're just being told it, like in almost narration. We never see it. Or are we actually going to go to the prison and see the mum again and see how this is affecting Kioni and actually start doing what a storyline is supposed to do and talk about the impact that it's having on the characters? Am I just being hopelessly optimistic?
No, I don't. I hope you're not. I mean, at the moment, in the current era, I'd have to say that we've not really had much happening away from the square. There's been funerals just happening, talked about later on off the square, hospital visits. I was shocked to see Keegan hospital visit, to be honest with you, the scene between him and Issac. I genuinely thought you were just going to see Keegan come back, and then that would be the end of it. So the anticipation that perhaps we might have the prison set brought back out from the warehouse and just kind of brought, shined up nicely just for a storyline where you might see the relationship kind of grow again between Mila and her mum. And Kioni. I would like to see that. And as you say, you're quite right. We should stand 100% behind the fact that they had such an opportunity with FGM to talk about it, to really expand on it. I mean, it's one of those things, and I do moan about it quite often, is that they're really excited and really happy to kind of publicise the fact that they're doing something new. But when they do something new, they then just kind of drop it as soon as it's started. And it's like, do these new things. Let's investigate them, which is why I'm so excited with the Monroe story, because they are doing it, and it's not asking too much. It's.
I mean, honestly, are you paid by the plot? Honestly, for goodness sake, do you get paid like an extra £5 for every new plot that you come up with? For goodness sake, EastEnders, honestly.
If you are, I'd like a job, please, because we come out with plots every week.
Clearly, we're great at this. So we could have some money. We could give you plots until the cows come home. Quite frankly,
we'll do a spin-off. I'm not. I'm not proud. I'll do a spin-off. I'll do an EastEnders spin-off online.
He'll dress
up
as a butler. He'll do it for telly. He'll dress up as a butler. No problem.
I'll do anything, me.
Yeah, his only problem is that not enough people watch this. Otherwise, he'd be all over it. The exhibitionist that you are. I would. What's next?
I mean, if more people did watch this, if we ever hit, I'll tell you what. Oh God, this is going.
Go on. Go on. Say it. Say it. I'm going to write this down.
If we hit 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, I will host, or at least do the introduction to an episode of Walford Weekly Podcast as a naked butler. It's out there. 10,000 subscribers. So don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel if you're watching us on there. Even if you're not, you get to see me in a black apron, shaking my tushy about. Oh gosh.
That's
I'm going to need to spend more days at the gym.
Really silly thing for you to have said. But do you know what? So what's the time limit for this promise? How long have they got? How long have we got to?
We're getting a time limit. Okay. Yeah. 10,000 subscribers by my birthday, April 19th. By April 19th. And I'll do it on my birthday.
Writing it down.
I might even make a special video. I won't even do it. I'll do a special video like Gary Lineker when he said he would host Match of the Day. 10,000 subscribers, guys. You want to see me in a black apron and nothing else? 10,000 subscribers. That's the way you see it.
10,000.
I'm going to move very swiftly.
I would.
Very swiftly on. Sonia has been supporting Stuart this week through his breast cancer storyline. And before we go any further, I want to make a humble apology, which is that I was very adamant that I didn't like the idea that we were doing a breast cancer storyline because I thought a testicular cancer storyline would be better. Do you know what? I retract that. I don't believe that's true because you can genuinely show a masculinity of a man being, kind of depleted, especially with a character like Stuart, which is another thing I want to praise the EastEnders for this week. That they've chosen the perfect character for this Stuart. He was handed pamphlets by the doctor, and they all were females, which must have been just soul destroying.
Well, he took it,
and
Yeah, he took it his diagnosis very well. He threatened the doctor, he threatened to kill the doctor. He stormed out of the room and then he took the door off its hinges. He went and got drunk and then went and attacked Sonia in her kitchen. So all in all, I think I totally agree with you. Standard Stuart. No, but that's why I agree with you. Because all of that was standard Stuart and what we would come to expect from Stuart, given that form of diagnosis. And actually, what a perfect character to give this storyline to. I completely agree. Because normally, with these sorts of storylines, what we tend to get is, what they'll do is, if you take take the likes of Peggy, for example, when she had her breast cancer storyline, what that is looking at someone that we've up to now seen as a really strong, sort of independent woman, and then watch her slowly kind of get stripped of that status as, that she has to go through the treatments and everything like that. Again, with Jean, a really sympathetic character. Carol, another quite sympathetic, strong, independent character that it's heartbreaking to watch it.
Love Carol.
Exactly. But this is a whole new sort of chapter to a story like that. I can't remember another sort of character like this who has been put in this position. And I think this is a fascinating character to give it to. Someone like Stuart, who sees the world in a bit of a different way to the rest of us. I think it's fair to say he kind of goes by the beats of his own drum in a lot of ways, doesn't he, Stuart? And I have to say, I thought that Stuart's reaction to everything that happened this week was pretty on the money for what I would expect from the character. So do you know what? Fair play. And again, breast cancer in males, great topic to cover. Really, really underrepresented in sort of the public forum. Like, you don't even get many adverts, I don't think, either, do you? Talking to blokes about breast cancer. Well, so I think it's a really important topic to tell.
With the portrayal. Absolutely. And this is what was with the portrayal this week, where the doctor only had information related to women with breast cancer. When Stuart turned up for his appointment with Sonia, the receptionist immediately thought it was Sonia, and Stuart, Stuart was there assisting her. So I thought that was brilliant. Why isn't it more openly? I know it's much rarer in a man, but why is it not then? Why is there information there for men as well that's easily accessible? But why does Stuart have to kind of have the same information as a woman?
Yeah, I mean,
it must, as you say, for Stuart, that's soul destroying.
It is, and to be fair, even in our comment section, we had some listeners, and this is no shade whatsoever. It's a perfectly understandable thing to think, but a lot of people in our comment section this week were saying, "I did not know that men could get breast cancer." Perfectly fair, because it's so underrepresented. Anyway, so it's I'm full of praise for this storyline, actually, despite how initially reticent I was about the idea of yet another cancer storyline. I actually think that this one is a good one to do. I say this now at the sort of genesis of the storyline. See where we are in 3 weeks' time, but at the moment I'm very much behind this, I have to say.
I'm hoping that they don't go down the Jean route where he kind of doesn't take the tests and he then thinks he's still got cancer and he's been clear for the whole year. That was becoming a running joke, especially on our podcast when we were saying, "Is Jean got cancer or not?" Jean, just find out, for goodness sake. Ridiculous. I just loved Rainie's kind of reaction to it too, when she thought that Sonia had cancer and she was there to. She went to Sonia and said, "I'm here to support you." She was, it showed that Rainie has a very considerate and kind heart too, when she's allowed to someone lets them into their life. So she felt safe with Sonia, that because Sonia had let Stuart into her life, she felt safe that she was also invited to that too. So I thought that was beautiful as well. That was really nice to see that Sonia, Stuart and Rainie's relationship was like, they are literally just one person. And just Stuart's childlike kind of like apology to his doctor as well, when he handed over the chocolate bar to say sorry that I had a go at you. Just brilliant. I've always been a stan. That's right, a stan of Rainie. And I'm a Rainie stan. I've always loved Rainie. Like when she first started, and with them together, I love them together.
They're a great
it's lovely to see a story of Sonia as well. And I think that the ensemble, the three of them together, is really, 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 really lovely to watch. And I'm hoping that we might get a 3 or, dare I say it, a 2-hander somewhere along the line with this story.
You know me, I would love that.
Would like to see
me, I would love to see that. If it was up to me, I'd have one a month. But who knows? It would be nice to see.
What an episode.
No. I mean, I would love that, and I think this is the perfect sort of, because it's been a long time since Stuart has had like a big story to himself. Actually, it's ever since he was sort of in the days of really dark Stuart. It's been a while since we saw, and I do wonder actually if this might be enough to sort of push him a little bit back in that direction again. Seems to be the sort of thing that
I wondered.
Seems to be the sort of react. Well, it seems like he nearly threatened to decapitate a doctor when he was given the result.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to be beyond the realms of possibility that this could push him back into a slightly darker direction. I did enjoy as well, sort of the revisitation of Sonia and Stuart's friendship, because that was quite a thing when he was living at Dots. We haven't seen a lot of those two interacting over the past few months. So yeah, do you know what? Right now, both of us full of praise, 10 out of 10. Keep it going. Don't let us down. Yes. Because we're not averse.
No.
We're not averse to turning. We will turn if we don't like it.
Oh, so. No. Oh, yes. This podcast will turn.
We will turn.
Oh, yes. But no, it's a lovely, real, grounded story. That it's for me, the bread and butter of the soap. And even if it's as a B plot, I don't care. It's there. It's in there. It's not loud. It's not brash. It's not over the top. The characters are right. They're played right. They're written right. Love it. For me, this was the king of... Well, I love the Kim story this week as well, but Kim was the queen and Stuart was the king story this week for me, personally. But there we go. That was our week in Walford.
Yeah.
Lovely week. Getting closer and closer to Christmas and New Year. Rubs hands together loudly. Very excited. But before we go any further, we have got something to talk about. An interview that was on Good Morning Britain this week on I Ain't One to Gossip.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.
So, this week, there has been an interview on Good Morning Britain in the UK with a man called Phil Redmond. Now, if you're not familiar with who Phil Redmond is, he created quite a lot of influential soaps in the UK. He was the creator of Brookside and of Hollyoaks and of Grange Hill. And he's basically been known for doing shows and storylines that really sort of were the first to do it, and sort of hard hitting, never looking away from type storylines. Like Brookside obviously had the first lesbian kiss. He was the guy that came up with the idea of dropping a plane on top of Emmerdale 3 years after the Lockerbie disaster. You know, all of this sort of thing. Some of this sort of attention grabbing stuff, and obviously came up with Hollyoaks, which has always been known for doing storylines completely and utterly out of the ordinary. And he did an interview on Good Morning Britain this week, and he was talking about if he was still working in soaps, how he would have reacted to the COVID pandemic and how he would have put it into the show that he was working on. Now, it's interesting, I think, because we've spoken about how the COVID situation has been dealt with within the soaps, and basically all of them have tried to sort of steer away from talking about it all that much. Obviously, the impact of it has been seen on screen with actors having to be miles apart and different filming techniques. Obviously, we're still talking in an era where EastEnders episodes typically are about 20 minutes long, if that. So that's still very much of an impact. However, what is your thoughts on... Because now we've been in the COVID era for well over a year now. And at the time, I think I was kind of glad to be watching EastEnders and not really be that aware of COVID. It was nice to sort of turn my brain off from it all for 20 minutes, because it was a difficult period to get through, especially at the start. But now in retrospect, do you agree with what Phil Redmond has said? Because he said that he would basically have, he would apply it to his soaps. He would throw COVID into the storylines. He would have character groups, some of them being anti-vaxxers, some of them being up for the vaccinations. He would give characters COVID. He would probably have killed a couple of people off with COVID. What do you think? Like, what do you think is the best way to have dealt with it in retrospect? Now we're looking back on what the COVID era essentially has been.
I think I've been quite vocal in the past on social media and perhaps on the podcast that I thought it was a missed opportunity that the soap didn't talk more about COVID, and that EastEnders choose to kind of selectively use COVID if and when it was felt necessary to kind of add it to a story for the sake of it. I mean, there were some really mad decisions. For argument's sake, Sonia, a nurse in the NHS, felt under strain, under pressure because of COVID. So to treat that, to remedy it, she decided to then fly into a red country. In the UK, we have traffic light system. India, red being the most dangerous, and spend some time with her daughter for a month or so. So it was like they introduced the COVID story, but then kind of pretended COVID didn't exist in order to make a solution to it. Yeah. Very strange. I'm just a very morbid person, but I would have been happy with some kind of COVID stories right from the get-set, to be honest with you.
Really?
I mean, there are soaps. Yeah, I would. There are some soaps. There's a Welsh soap that our old friend Plant Geek used to remind us of, and they would wear masks pretty much throughout the episode. They would always be wearing masks as they were interacting with each other when they were inside. And so there was no escaping it. They were in a world where COVID existed. EastEnders, Coronation Street, they live in a world where COVID exists, but isn't perhaps as much of a danger as maybe it was portrayed when we, first discovered it back in March last year. It's interesting actually, Phil saying those stories. I've never thought of it. An anti-vax story would be brilliant. I'd love to have seen an anti-vax story. It's interesting, isn't it? Being investigated.
Yeah,
because they did do that one insert, didn't they, in the episode when the vaccinations first started rolling out? Do you remember? It was Patrick and Suki, and they were saying, "This is my superpower. I've been injected." And that's really the only mention of it. So I think that the anti-vax story would have been fascinating. Again, social media involving people.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting, I think. You're totally right. There was some mad sort of decisions made as to how much COVID was going to be mentioned. I think I said to you over text when we were talking about this during the week that, there's the bit where Sonia runs away to India and to countries where, the borders are more closed than they would be during war. And, Denise's salon was open whilst the rest of us were going around looking like Yetis. And, everything was going on, and yet so they'd ignore all that, and then have Mick randomly walk into a scene. So sorry, I forgot my mask for the underground. It was very strange. Sort of like it's. But I have to say, when it all first kicked off, COVID was everywhere when this first died. There wasn't nothing else was mentioned on the news. It was, we were all in lockdown. No one was going out, so nobody was unaware of what was going on with COVID. And actually, I think at the time, it was nice to sort of have a period of your life, whether that be for half an hour or for 20 minutes, where you could watch TV and just forget about it all. And just not have to think about it. Because obviously we've all kind of got used to what's going on at the minute. It's still not great, obviously, but I think that I think for the majority of people, I think we're sort of less mentally affected by everything that's been going on now. It's less extreme than it was right at the start when our whole lives were having to radically change quite quickly. We've sort of got into the swing of the new normal now, sort of thing. But I also agree that it would have been absolutely fascinating to see a sort of anti-vax story. Because if you remember, when EastEnders went on its break and they were releasing those little snippets of what the characters had been up to when the show had been off air, Patrick had COVID. Obviously, Patrick was off when the show first came back. He didn't come back for the first few months because Patrick had COVID and had been in a ward and really seriously ill with COVID. Wasn't really spoken about that much. Tina apparently had COVID. That wasn't mentioned once during her remaining time on the show. Not once.
Her final storyline.
And I think actually it would have been really, really interesting to sort of see groups of characters talking about the vaccinations. The one scene that we mentioned there, it got a mixed reaction, I think it's fair to say, because I think to some they thought it was a little bit preachy. To others, other people were like, yes, well done, EastEnders, yes, tell people what idiots they are. So, please do let us know in the comment section below as to what you think. Did you think that the soaps in general and the EastEnders dealt with the COVID situation right? Do you agree with Phil that there should have been more direct storylines as a result of COVID? It's interesting.
I would just put one more thing into the pot, and that's just that of all the soaps, I think EastEnders was the one that did the least. Like Coronation Street, Emmerdale, Hollyoaks, I saw more on screen. Like you said about them wearing masks. They did at least wear masks inside on the other soaps. EastEnders never really, they wore masks. Even when they were walking out, you never saw them taking off a mask, or walking into, they were putting on a mask. With Emmerdale, the other soaps, they did tend to still show that. So it's the fact that, if we're obviously going to talk specifically about EastEnders, it's the fact that it was completely avoided. And what the argument is it that we should it be entertainment, or should the soap be relevant to a kitchen sink drama, kind of it hits home? It should be what is reflecting the world being reflected on screen.
Well, yeah, because that's what soaps are supposed to be at the end of the day, aren't they? They're supposed to be
and there was that
reflection of
famous
real life.
quote.
Yeah.
And there was that famous quote that Kate Oates, at the beginning of it, like when they came back, I kept whispering it to you all the time. It was like, alternative universe. Because Kate Oates said, this is what they live in Walford. But then they can't make that argument anymore because now we've seen they've done crossovers this week, this year. This alternative universe, they've all linked in together somehow.
It's interesting.
Tricky. I get it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, of course, as well as let's be honest, without wanting to talk too politically, it's fair to say the rules have been changing left, right and centre. There's been a lot of uncertainty as to about what rules are. So how the hell are the soaps that are 6 months behind when they're filming supposed to reflect that? That's the other thing. It's all very well for somebody who doesn't really work in the soap industry anymore to come out and say, I think it should have been done like this. Yeah. When the soaps have changed a lot in terms of production since the days of Brookside and early days of Hollyoaks. I'm pretty sure.
Well, since the days of COVID coming in.
Well, exactly.
The production of soaps is much more different 2 years ago because of COVID.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Hollyoaks we have these days is not the Hollyoaks that Phil Redmond conceived.
It certainly isn't.
And I also think that it's interesting. Yes, Corrie and Emmerdale especially did feature masks a lot more. I noticed what Corrie and Emmerdale also did was that they do random things like they'd have a scene in a shop, have a character enter from the outside wearing the mask and then take the mask off to talk in the scene. That doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous. That's not how No.
Yes,
so
you're spot on there. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, EastEnders managed to avoid all of that because they just didn't really...
They just didn't bother.
They just carried on. They just didn't bother. No, which, to be fair, means that you can take the mick out of it a little bit less. I mean, yes, we can say stupid things like Sonia jetting off to India or something where she definitely wouldn't have been allowed access. And, the fact that the salon was open and nobody was wearing masks in it. But at the same time, you could look back on little scenes like that and you wouldn't necessarily think, that was made in the COVID era. That was made when the cast were all supposed to be 2 feet apart. So, I don't know. It's storyline wise, I totally agree. And I think that's also a reflection of the fact that soaps again have changed a lot since then. Soaps now are more all about sort of the big storylines, rather than sort of those gentle reflections of humanity as like they used to be when we were growing up. And when soaps like Hollyoaks was just starting out, Brookside was the big thing. I don't know. I think it would be interesting, I think, to really do an anti-vax storyline and have... So now we're so far, we're sort of elbow deep into COVID now, as it were. I think it'd be quite interesting now to sort of reflect and have the characters discuss how it's affected their lives and look... And I don't know. I think it might be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting to think that obviously on ITV, on Channel 4, they're kind of run by advertisers as well. And, would advertisers want to put money into a show which is essentially every night going to make people upset because they're showing COVID on screen? Is it. Which is, again, why it kind of surprised me that EastEnders was the one that showed the least, really, because they're not bound by those rules. But... yeah, it's interesting. There's also the argument where, if they were ever to... because they obviously repeat TV shows, there's a vast library of TV shows and ITV vaults and the Channel 4 vaults and BBC vaults, vast programmes. In 20 years' time, would people want to look back and rewatch an episode of EastEnders, despite it being John Sen's era, of people like kind of, being, in COVID situations and this, that and the other, Would it be something you want to rewatch again? So there's that, that as well. But I'd be interested to know what people comment below.
Yeah, please.
Or get in touch with
let us know. Yeah, do let us know in the comment section below what you think of... What would you have done in the COVID situation? Do you think that the soap should now be talking more about COVID and the vaccinations? And do you agree with Phil? Do you not agree with Phil? You can let us know by contacting us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get notifications about the spoiler videos. And you can listen to us on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites. You can email us at robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or at alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. And remember to share the channel left, right and centre, because if you want to see a naked Alex by April the 29th, then we need to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're nearly at 8,000 at the minute, so we need 2,000 more subscribers. This is down to you people. Let's get this guy's body out for the world to see. That's what we want to see. So make it happen. So we should be back same time.
See that.
You're the one that promised this, and I will be pushing this to the limit by the time your birthday comes around, young man. Let me tell you that for nothing. So, we'll be back same time next week, I think. Am I going to be back? Yes, I am going to be back this time next week. So, until then, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from myself.
Ta-ta, listeners. Bye.
Bye-bye.